What's up, everybody? Hey, Pastor Matt here. Super excited to bring you a bonus episode during our 21 days of prayer and fasting that we're calling Pursuit 21. And of course, it all coincides with our Hunger and Thirst series every single Sunday when we're in the house here as we're kicking off this new year. So here's the bonus content that I'm so excited for you to hear and listen to and be a part of today. In week 1 of our Hunger and Thirst series, I mentioned a book, I put the QR code up, the whole deal, called Scrolling Ourselves to Death. And it is written and edited by Brett McCracken and Yvonne Mesa. Well, I had the opportunity recently to sit down over Zoom with Brett McCracken. And can I tell you, our conversation was rich. And so, as you guys know, Pastor Sarah and I are so burdened. We're so, just burdened for our present state of our world and how this new technology that is coming at us so fast is impacting and influencing us. So my conversation with Brett McCracken was so interesting, intriguing, and honestly hard-hitting that I want to bring it to you. So we said, you know what? Let's bring it as a bonus episode for everyone who's been tracking through these 21 days to listen to and absorb. So my prayer is that you will listen to our conversation and allow the Holy Spirit to speak to your heart. Enjoy. What's up, everybody? Hey, wanted to bring you this special opportunity, and that is an opportunity for me, but all of us, to sit down with an author that I am super excited to talk to. His name is Brett McCracken, and Brett, thank you. He is, as well as others, the author of the book called Scrolling Ourselves to Death. And my, oh my friend, what a needed word for the body of Christ today. So let me say this. In the book, you reference often a book that was written 40 years ago called Amusing Ourselves to Death by a gentleman named Neil Postman. Now, I'll admit, I've never read that book, but honestly, as I read this, I didn't need to. You guys did such a good job of honoring him and quoting him. But man, this book is so amazing and so timely. Talk to me, Brett. What was the driving emphasis for writing a book like this?
Yeah, well, actually, the Neil Postman Amusing Ourselves to Death, we were coming up on the 40th anniversary of that. So that book came out in 1985. So we were like, what can we do to kind of commemorate that book, which was really influential in terms of getting people to think carefully about media and technology. At the time, in the 80s, it was television. So we're very far, we've advanced a lot since then. But what Neil Postman did in that book is basically like do a careful analysis of how media and technology changes us. It changes the way we think. It changes the way we relate. It's not neutral. It changes things. So we at the Gospel Coalition, my co-editor, Ivan Mesa, and myself, we just thought, let's do our version of this for the scrolling age. So digital technology is changing us. It's changing us in ways that are concerning in a lot of ways. And we want Christians to be aware of those dynamics and to just kind of go deeper, go a few layers deeper and trying to think through how these devices, these phones that we take with us everywhere all the time are actually shaping us. They're shaping our brains. There's actual science that is showing that. They're shaping how we read. We're becoming poorer readers, poorer thinkers, and they're changing relationships and all sorts of other things. So we wanted to put together the book to just raise the alarm bells a little bit. The title is a little alarming, Scrolling Ourselves to Death, but it's not that far from the truth because I think spiritually, one of the effects of the digital age really can be death, spiritual death, where we're led by the algorithm, so to speak, down the path of spiritual emptiness and ultimately destruction. So the subtitle of the book is Reclaiming Life in the Digital Age. And that's really our hope for the book. Our prayer for the book is to try to not only raise the alarm bells about the problematic dynamics, but to hopefully give people ideas for how to live differently and to live in a wiser mode as Christians in this digital age.
Wow. It's so good. And as you just said, so timely. Like this is a word for our age. One of the unique things about the book is that it's not just written by you and Ivan. There's every chapter has a different author. Why that? I'm as an author myself, I'm interested in that structure, that philosophy of writing. Why the different perspectives from so many different authors?
Yeah, I think we liked the idea of bringing kind of some of the best thinkers right now in the Christian world about technology together in one book, because each of them brings a little bit of a different expertise and a different kind of passion area, perhaps. So we just kind of listed out all these names of people that we thought had written well in these topics. Some people who are contributors to the book have written their own books on these topics already. So yeah, and I think the end product proves that that was a good idea, because I know I would have gotten bored with just reading things by myself, the whole time. I'm sure Ivan as well. So it's nice to have a variety of perspectives, and I think different people bring different wisdom. So that was the idea.
I love it, and I mean, for what my opinion is worth, bro, I love it. Like you nailed it. It was I
Oh,
love that it
good.
gave different, fresh perspectives to things, and there
Yeah.
were some of them that I would go, huh,
Yeah.
and others, a majority of them, where I'm like, wow, I never would have
Mm,
seen that. I never thought of that. So
yeah.
well done. So
Yeah.
you talk about in the book that we're living in an information saturation age or
Yeah.
time. And you mentioned the word already. It's a bit of a buzzword, but I want you to double click on it for a few minutes, Brett. And that is the idea, the power, the danger of an algorithm, the
Hmm.
algorithms that we
Hmm.
don't see what we want to see. We see what they want us to see. Speak to this idea of being in an
Yeah.
information saturation age where we can literally like know too
Yeah.
much about everything. Talk about that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it is one of the most challenging dynamics is this just glut of information. There's so many voices coming at us, so many opinions, so many pieces of entertainment, amusement coming across our feeds all the time, and they're delivered to us by very sophisticated algorithms, which increasingly are run by AI, which learn us, and they kind of learn each of our particular kind of tastes and preferences and what we have a track record of clicking on and being drawn to, and they feed us more of that. And the danger, I mean, there's so many dangers there, right? Because as Christians, we know, the heart is deceitful above all things. What we gravitate towards is not always the best thing for us. In fact, it usually isn't the best thing for us. But the algorithm, is not wanting the best for us spiritually. It's wanting money. It's wanting eyeballs on our devices. That's all it cares about. That's all these tech companies care about. Attention, right? Attention is the currency of the digital economy. So tech companies are their main incentive is to commandeer each of our attentions as much as possible. So they'll do anything they can to present things to us on our devices that they know we will have a hard time resisting because of our natural inclinations. So when you open your feed, each of us is opening a different experience. No two of us is seeing the same version of reality, which is kind of scary in and of itself, right? Like
Right.
it's a scary world where reality, such as it is fed to us slightly differently depending on our preferences, maybe our politics, right? Each of us is kind of living in a little bubble or a little echo chamber that the algorithm has created for us. So there's a lot of problems with that, and we can talk more about that. But the algorithm is also just for in the spiritual formation kind of conversation. I think the algorithm is a massive source of distraction, right? It takes our attention away from things like prayer and reading scripture and just being with people in real embodied community. And it pulls us into this downward spiral of like digital addiction. And I think spiritually, there's just a lot to be worried about with that.
Well, yeah, you and the authors in the book talk about how distraction, we are now using scrolling as social
Hmm.
media as a distraction to unwind, to
Yeah.
just, I
Yeah.
mean, I remember you and I probably, remember as a kid, like being like just sitting having nothing to do. Like but
Right.
there was power
Yeah.
creatively in
Yes.
boredom. And you're in
Absolutely.
an elevator, you're at a stoplight for crying out loud. All of us are
Yeah.
picking up our phones. Like
Yeah.
that, the power of and one of the other things that I think I really loved about what you and the authors talk about in the book is, and you said it a moment ago, that no technology is neutral. And I think
Mhm.
we're being led to believe by technology and in our culture today, because it's so ubiquitous, I think
Yeah.
we're being led to believe, as Christians as well,
Yeah.
that, well, no, like the technology is neutral, like that this is just
Yeah.
how the world is. But
Yes.
it's not. Speak
Right.
to what you and the
Yeah.
authors have found.
Yeah, I think that's kind of a common misconception with regard to technology, and it's you can understand why we think that because it seems like technology is just a tool, right? It's just this kind of packaging. But the reality is, and thinkers, over the years like Marshall McLuhan, Neil Postman, Jack Ellul, they've all basically made this argument that technology is not neutral, and especially in a fallen world where humans' natural inclination is to kind of corrupt everything. So, to go back to the algorithm and the profit motive of like trying to commandeer attention, even if the phone, in theory is like a neutral device, perhaps, the fact is when there's money at stake, when there's people who see this as an opportunity to make money, it is quickly turned into a non-neutral technology because it's incentivized to simply be addictive, right? And it's the same thing with so many things in our culture, right? They're created to make money and to be addictive, and therefore they become very dangerous for us. So I think we have to be really careful with that idea that technology is neutral. I was just having a conversation, and I'll try to be quick with this, but just yesterday at church, I was having a conversation with a guy who works in the AI space. And AI is a whole other conversation, but it's related to this. But he was basically saying like AI is just the way the world is going. Like it's kind of a foregone conclusion. Christians just need to get on board. It's just a neutral. He used that word. It's just a neutral technology, and we need to just kind of be Christians using it so that the future, which is a foregone conclusion, that's what he was arguing, is a little bit brighter because Christians are forming it. And I can see his argument a little bit with that, but I do think it's dangerous to just assume that something like AI is a neutral technology right out of the gate. Like I'm not so sure about that. So anyway, a whole other conversation for another day, AI, but it's a big
Wow.
topic.
Well, thank you. It's such a big deal. And again, I'm so thankful that you and your authors, your friends have written this. Like, such an amazing book. One of the things that I think was a Postman quote
Hmm.
that you guys really key in on is this phrase of, and he was using it, of course, in the 70s and 80s around, the evening news, so to speak,
Yeah.
which is that phrase, now
Mm-hmm.
this. And how the idea of, and at first when I read it, I'm like, what? And then I quickly got the concept and I'm like,
Yeah.
yes. That,
Yeah.
that when we scroll, I mean, it used to be the evening news used to be, a 90-second story. Now this, now you'd
Yeah.
cut to something else, or a 2-minute story, then you cut to something else. Well, of course, in the world of scroll
Yeah.
now this is literally fragments of seconds at times. Like you
Right.
watch some of these
Yeah.
teenagers, like they scroll so, and they're
Yeah.
consuming, and it just how crazy that is. The living in a world of fragments.
Yeah.
Talk about that.
Yeah, I mean that concept is one of the things about Neil Postman's book that most people remember when they read that book, the now dot 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 this idea. But you're right, like in the social media age of these feeds, it's just kind of the extreme version of that. Like everything is just disconnected fragments. It's like a funny cat video next to a headline about genocide in Africa, next to a political rant, next to a cute video or photo of a baby. It's all just it's coming at us in a disconnected, fragmentary way. And one of the things that is happening that people like Nicholas Carr are writing about in his book, The Shallows, about brain science, it's changing the way our brains operate because our poor brains in the digital age are being bombarded with all this disconnected information. There's so much stimulation that is devoid of any kind of connecting narrative or synthesis. And so our brains are having to expend more energy on this kind of triage of like, where do I file the cat video? Do I file it in the same place as the like genocide news and the political? Like, so our brains are just like working overtime in the digital age. And what's happening is there's less and less energy for our brains to actually do the deeper level thinking and kind of critically evaluating because they're spending all their energy on that triage level, which is problematic, right? If we're losing the ability to think critically and deeply as Christians, that's something that we really need to be concerned about.
Well, let's segue there, Brett, for a few minutes. Then, so what do we do? Because one of the things that you and the authors talk about is a whole chapter on how the internet is making the whole doubting our faith and having struggles in our faith so much more dangerous. Because again, rewind the tape, pre-internet, pre-social media. One could have doubts. You and I probably did in college, in high school, through as you're growing, when you're early married years, you struggle with things, you wrestle with things, you doubt some things. But there's a smaller group of people that you're doing that with, and that are leading you out of that. And now the whole world is, quote, leading you out of that. Yes. Talk around that idea for a few minutes.
Yeah, I think one of the challenging dynamics of the digital age is that you can find community and you can find kind of allies, if you will, people who agree with you or reinforce your doubts or maybe sympathize with your doubts. You can just, with a quick Google search, you can find a whole community and suddenly you feel like justified in your doubts and beliefs. Whereas for most of human history, you had the community in the flesh. That's who you process things with. And they knew you and they loved you and they actually would talk you off the ledge if you were going down a bad path. Now, if you're going down a bad path, you can find lots of people online who say that's not a bad path. You're actually on a fine path. And everyone else in your real life, your family, your friends, they're the ones who are wrong. I, as an internet influencer who you don't know and never can really know, take it from me, like you are doing the right thing. So it's just a really unhealthy dynamic because God created us as embodied beings to be known and loved in real community where people can see us in a 360 way and walk with us in life and actually speak hard truth to us when necessary. But the internet is disembodied and you can kind of know people in a very surface way where it's more just about kind of saying what you want them to hear and kind of getting likes on your photos if you're an influencer. So it's just not a healthy dynamic for the serious dimensions of life where you really need real community around you to kind of disciple you and walk you through that. So I think for pastors and church leaders, like, it's just a reminder that we need to get people in embodied community. We really need to play up the importance of the local church should be the first place where you invest, relational energy, where you make big decisions with the kind of collective wisdom of that community. The internet can be a nice supplement and maybe you can find some good resources, but it shouldn't be the first place you go for the big questions of life and the big decisions of life.
My goodness. So stay right there, Brett, for a few minutes because we have certainly over the last 17 minutes teed up the problem.
Yes.
Let's talk about what do we do because this isn't going away. We got to live in this world. AI is not going away. Social media is not going away. How do you and I, and let's presume our audience, the majority of our audience, are followers of Jesus, what do we do about this? How do we give us some practical thoughts on how we stay connected, but we're in the world, not of the world, if I can even use a phrase of Jesus to speak to that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, I think kind of what I just said about like we need to disciple people to make the local church and the real kind of IRL dimension of life, the people who actually know you, the community you can go to and be known in. that needs to be a higher kind of value and priority than life online in these kind of digital bubbles. It's not to say that you just throw away all that and you like chuck your phone in the trash. You just need to reorder the priorities a little bit. And I think if we just start with that basic idea of kind of doing an audit of our lives and asking ourselves like, is my phone, is my online experience currently, does it loom largest in my life as the biggest influence? If so, I need to make some adjustments. I need to kind of downgrade that a little bit so that it functions more as a supplement, as a place that I occasionally spend time, but then I don't spend all of my time there. So I think we start with just kind of very honest, self-reflective audits of like, how are we spending our time? And is it disproportionately kind of scrolling through your feeds, just kind of endless hours on TikTok and YouTube, endless kind of one podcast after another? Like if that's the case, we need to kind of push people to healthier sources of like in real life community, being outside in nature. That's something that I write about and advocate a lot. Like, I think it's a great antidote to a lot of the digital kind of deception that we can find ourselves in. Like God's creation has a truth to it and a wisdom to it. And if we just kind of make sure that we're in touch with that, I think that'll do us a lot of good. So yeah, I would just encourage, practically, I just encourage churches and Christians to do, digital fasts, like just try to go periods of time without certain apps, because if you can't do that, that's like, the definition of addiction. If you literally cannot like go without something. So right now our church is doing that, and I've been off social media the whole month of January so far, and it's been so wonderful. And it's just a good exercise to make sure we can live without these things. And it just frees you up to be disconnecting from some things, allows you to reconnect with other things. And for Christians, reconnecting with God and family and friends is just so important to do. So,
man, so good, so wise. I think there's so much knowledge available to us now, but what I think we're lacking in our world today, and perhaps even in the church today, is wisdom. And so, Brett, thank you for the wisdom. We have a lot of pastors who are probably listening to our conversation right now. Let's talk to pastors and church leaders, because the digital world, scrolling ourselves to death, is affecting our churches. It's affecting how we preach. There's a difference between being a content creator and being a pastor. Although they have similarities in how they look and present themselves, it's a totally different calling and role. Yeah. Talk about the impacts that our digital technology world that we're living in today is affecting the church.
Yeah. Wow. There's a lot to say there, Matt.
Right there, right?
I think one thing that comes to mind is the way the internet is shaping people is there's a phrase that some people have been using called main character syndrome, which is basically when you live in this world of the algorithms like reinforcing your beliefs and feeding you what they think you want to receive, and social media makes you the star and you the center of everything. The internet is forming people to have this kind of main character syndrome where they go into real life situations expecting real life to do the same thing, to kind of bend itself to me and my desires. So if you're a pastor, you just have to understand that people are coming into your church being formed that way. And they're going to come into your church and be a little bit like upset when like you preach a sermon that doesn't necessarily like fit them exactly as they want, or it may be like there's a little friction that they experience because the church is not an algorithm, right? The church is not meant to be something that just feeds you pleasurable content all the time that, that gives you what you want. Sometimes the church gives you what you need, and it's hard and difficult. And I think one mistake that pastors make in the digital age is they see themselves as needing to compete with the algorithm and with like the amusements of TikTok and YouTube. And they just confuse the categories. Like you mentioned, like the church is just categorically different. Like the Holy Spirit and what he's doing in shaping God's people is on a whole nother plane of existence than what the entertainment industrial complex is doing with your phone and with algorithms. So we don't want to confuse those categories. Churches need to embrace what they are, which is this like, divine kind of Holy Spirit formed community of being shaped to grow in the direction of Christ-likeness. It's not about entertaining people. It's not about giving them this content all the time. That's what their phones do. And I think that when I talk to young people these days, it's interesting. Like, I feel like Gen Z wants church to be different. Like, they don't want to go to church and experience it as just another thing that is kind of like what they experience on their phone. Like, they're worn out by that. They're worn out by the algorithmic orientation of just kind of addictive content. They want to go to church and experience a holy encounter with a living God. They want the kind of slightly uncomfortable, like, community aspect, even though it is hard and uncomfortable. I think they recognize that what church needs to be in their life needs to be something very different than what they get on their smartphone. So I would just say, pastors, don't confuse the categories. Don't think that you need to compete with the phone. Lean into your difference. Lean into the ways that you offer an alternative, an antidote. And I think we're going to find more and more as life in the digital age leaves people thirsty and hungry for substance, because if we're honest, so much online is just like shallow. It's a mile wide, inch deep. It's just kind of TikTok junk food. It's not nourishing. People are hungry for substance, right? I think that's why we're seeing Gen Z return to church, the kind of vibe shift that's happening in our culture. I think it has to do with technology, the diminishing returns of technological promises that actually aren't fulfilling what they are promising. The church can be that substantive thing that people are hungry for, but we have to lean into that and not be ashamed of the transcendent nature of the church, and remind ourselves that we aren't ever going to compete with TikTok, and we don't need to, because we have something very different to offer.
Bro, that right there was a clinic. That was, I got to go back and listen to that. That was so good. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Yes, yes, yes. And thank you, Brett, for being pro-church, by the way. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. Okay, one last little perspective I want to ask you about. So chapter 11 in the book, Scrolling Ourselves to Death, that you and a whole bunch of people wrote. Chapter 11 is the chapter you wrote, and it's all about reconnecting information and action. So let me stay in this church vein, because I loved so much of what you wrote in that chapter of essentially the big idea. Let me see if I can give the big idea to you. Ready? Here you go.
Yeah, okay.
For me, the big takeaway was that there's this disconnect now, that we can change our profile picture and put a post that we're praying for some crisis or tragedy in the world, and somehow that equals action, when in reality, that's not action at all. That's just changing your picture and posting a post.
Yes.
We need to reconnect as followers of Jesus to actually taking action. And then I love, Brett, that you bring that all the way down to the local level. Yeah. So I don't even know what my question is, except I would love to hear you riff on that a little bit and just unpack that, because that was the chapter you wrote. And again, it was so powerful, man. Oh,
good. Yeah, that was a fun chapter to write, because I was basically taking a concept from Neil Postman's book. He coined this phrase, the information action ratio, essentially saying, humans are created to have a pretty even ratio with the information that comes across our brains and the ability to take action in response. For most of human history, that was a pretty even ratio, because there was no mass media that could bring information to us from far-flung places. Now, of course, we live in a very different world where every day we are bombarded with so much information from all over the world, and most of it we can't take tangible action on. So the information action ratio is way out of balance, And that's a big reason why we're going crazy. Like we have so many mental health problems because we're not created to have this out of balance ratio between information that burdens our brains, that makes us sad and angry, right? It's not, of course, when we see a headline about war on another continent, or an assassination here and like poverty over here, of course we feel, led to want to do something about it because it's hard to see that. But we just can't, because it's so far away. All we can do is post a picture, a profile picture, or post a hashtag maybe, and that's just not enough of action for what we are created to do. So my chapter, I'm basically again, making the local church a central part of the solution. God's church all over the world is a ready-made outpost for tangible action to solve real problems. It's the beauty of the church. Like in any corner of the world, whatever the problem is in that area of the world, churches have always been super active in trying to bring solutions and to kind of solve those problems. And so for people in the digital age who are very aware of how broken the world is because of everything that's always coming across our brains, and we're very frustrated that we can't do much about those things that are so far away, go to your local church. Find out where you can channel your desire to be active, because I guarantee every local church has some sort of connection to a local soup kitchen or a local, pregnancy center or something where you can actually do real work. And that's where I think you will feel that angst dissipate, because God created us to take action and to be his hands and feet, right? On the local level. And so get off of your phone where you just constantly get angry about the problems of the world, and go do something tangibly in your backyard, wherever you live. And the church can be a great outpost for that.
Wow. Brett, thank you. Thank you for writing this. I know how much of a labor of love writing a book is. The name of the book is Scrolling Ourselves to Death, and it is available on Amazon and everywhere else. And so everyone listening to this, get this book, and don't just get it and sit it on your shelf. Get it and read it. Put down your phone and read it, because it has the power to change the way you think about how we think about technology. Brett, thank you. What an honor it is to spend time with you today. What a gift you are to the body of Christ. Keep doing what you and all of the authors are doing. It's making a difference in the local church.
Yeah, thank you so much, Matt.
What a powerful conversation, huh? Crazy insightful. That guy is wise and smart. If you haven't gotten the book, make sure you get the book. Church family, the other thing I would say is ask the Lord to speak to your heart. God, in light of what I just learned, what do I need to do for me and my soul? Not just in these 21 days, but in my lifestyle. Everybody, can't wait to see you in the house tomorrow. All 4 locations. Come on. See you there. Hunger and thirst.